It began on a quiet Wednesday evening, the kind of night when the world feels too still, like it's holding its breath. The rain had slowed to a mist outside my apartment window, and the streets below were nearly deserted. I had been sitting alone on my couch, scrolling aimlessly through my phone. Work had drained me that day, and the silence of my living room only seemed to make the exhaustion worse. I wasn't expecting anything unusual, nothing at all. But then my phone buzzed. Not the usual notification chime or the vibration of a text message, but a sharp tone I didn't recognize. The screen lit up with a single message. It read, "Tomorrow, 7:46 p.m. Don't leave your apartment." At first, I thought it had to be some kind of scam or a glitch in one of my apps. I frowned, swiping the notification away, but my thumb froze in place. The sender wasn't a number, wasn't even a contact. It just said, "Unknown source, future log." Future log? I'd never downloaded anything like that. I opened my app drawer, scrolled through everything, checked the settings. Nothing. No app by that name. No trace of anything unusual. I tried to shake it off, telling myself it was probably just a spam message with a creepy gimmick. The internet was full of strange things designed to spook people. But as the minutes ticked by, I couldn't stop glancing at the message. The timestamp. The precision. 7:46 p.m. Why that exact time? The message disappeared when I tried to screenshot it. Gone. Vanished from my notification history as if it had never existed. I told myself to laugh it off. I even muttered aloud, "Nice try." But something about the way the words had appeared, stark, simple, direct, left me with a creeping chill that I couldn't shake. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined my phone buzzing again, lighting up with another warning. My dreams were scattered, full of static and shadows, and when I finally woke up, my head was pounding. The next day at work, I tried to distract myself. I sat at my desk, answering emails, sipping lukewarm coffee. By noon, I convinced myself that the whole thing was a weird prank, maybe a notification glitch I'd misread. Technology could play tricks on you. That had to be it. But when I checked my phone again around lunch, there it was, another message. Same strange tone. Same impossible sender. "It happens tonight. 7:46 p.m. Stay inside. Don't answer the door." I dropped my phone onto my desk like it had burned me. My coworker glanced over and asked if I was okay. I forced a laugh, said I just got a spam text. But inside, my stomach was twisting. Why would a scammer warn me not to answer the door? Why would they give me a specific time? For the rest of the afternoon, I couldn't focus on anything. My mind kept circling back to the message. I searched online for future log, but nothing came up. No apps, no companies, no trace at all. Like it had been invented just for me. When I finally left work and drove home, I kept checking the clock on my dashboard. 6:30, 6:50, 7:10. Every tick forward sent another shiver through me. By the time I got back to my apartment, the sky was darkening, streaked with bruised purple clouds. The rain had picked up again, faint taps against the glass. I paced the living room, my phone in my hand, heart hammering. 7:30. I locked the door, double-checked the windows. I told myself it was ridiculous that I was letting a spam message control me. But every instinct screamed at me not to take chances. At 7:45, I sat rigid on the couch, staring at the door. My phone buzzed again. The final message. Now. The sound came a second later, a knock at the door. Slow, heavy, deliberate. My breath caught in my throat. I didn't move. Whoever it was knocked again, harder this time. "Hello." A voice called softly through the door. It was a man's voice, calm and steady, but something about it made my skin crawl. "I know you're in there." I sat frozen, gripping my phone so tightly that my knuckles ached. The knocking grew louder, more urgent. "Please, just open the door. I only want to talk." I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the knocking stopped. Silence pressed against the walls. I waited. Minutes passed, though they felt like hours. Finally, I gathered the courage to peek through the peephole. The hallway was empty. I stood there, trembling, staring into the void of the corridor until my phone buzzed again. One final message. "You listened. Good. Don't trust the knock tomorrow." Sleep didn't come that night. I stayed awake until the thin glow of dawn crept across my living room floor. The last message still fresh in my mind. Don't trust the knock tomorrow. Every time the building creaked, every time pipes shifted in the walls, my nerves jolted like live wires. I kept expecting another knock, another voice calling through the door. But none came. When the sun finally rose, the fear dulled but didn't disappear. I felt wrung out, like my body had been drained of every ounce of strength. At work, I moved like a ghost. My coworkers noticed, asked if I was sick. I said yes, that I'd caught something, and left early. The truth was gnawing at me. The messages weren't random. They weren't glitches or pranks. They were warnings. And so far, they'd been right. I tried to ignore my phone. I turned it off, stuffed it in a drawer, buried myself in mundane tasks. But as the hours passed, a kind of pressure built in the air, like the feeling before a storm. By late afternoon, curiosity outweighed fear. I pulled my phone out, turned it on, and waited. Almost immediately, the notification appeared. That same alien chime, sharp enough to pierce the quiet. Tonight, 8:11 p.m. Don't look at the window. My heart lurched. This wasn't a repeat of last night. The rules had changed. I wanted to throw the phone across the room, to smash it and end this twisted game. But another part of me, the part desperate to understand, clung to it. If these warnings were real, if they were saving me from something, I couldn't ignore them. The hours crawled by. Every tick of the clock felt louder, heavier. By the time evening arrived, I'd pulled all my blinds shut, sealing out the night. I sat in my living room again, hands clasped together, phone on the table in front of me like a loaded weapon. 8:05, my pulse quickened. 8:09, I couldn't sit still. I paced, chewing my lip, every nerve screaming. 8:11, the room went still. At first, nothing happened, just silence. Then, softly, came the sound of fingernails tapping glass. Top, top, top. I froze. The blinds trembled faintly, like someone was running their fingers along the other side. Top, top, top. My stomach turned. The sound moved slowly across the length of the window, deliberate, searching. I pressed my back against the far wall, squeezing my eyes shut. The message echoed in my mind. Don't look at the window. The tapping stopped. For a moment, the quiet was worse than the sound. Then, faintly, a voice seeped through the blinds. Why are you hiding? It whispered. The voice was distorted, like hearing someone speak underwater. It wasn't male or female, not quite human at all. Come closer, it murmured. Just look. I want to see you. I clenched my teeth, refusing to move. Minutes stretched. The voice grew softer, almost pleading. Please, I am lonely. I dug my nails into my palms until I felt the sting. My legs ached to run, but there was nowhere to go. Then, suddenly, silence again. No tapping, no voice. I stood frozen for what felt like an eternity. Finally, my phone buzzed. Good. You're learning. Never listen when they ask. Relief and terror mixed together until I felt dizzy. Whoever or whatever was out there had wanted me to give in, to look. But I hadn't. Still, questions gnawed at me. Who was sending these messages? How did they know what was coming? And why me? That night, I shoved a chair under the doorknob, stuffed towels under the window cracks, anything to make me feel safer. But safety was an illusion. I knew now that something had chosen me, something that wanted me to open the door or the window, or maybe worse. And it wasn't finished. The following day, I stayed home from work. I couldn't face normal life anymore. My apartment had become a trap, but also a shield. Every sound from the hallway, every creak in the walls, set my nerves on edge. At 2 p.m., my phone buzzed again. They'll try again tonight. 9:03 p.m. Don't answer the call. The words made my chest tighten. A call. So it wasn't just knocking or tapping. They were changing tactics. As evening drew near, I turned my phone's ringer off, but it didn't matter. At 9:03 on the dot, the screen lit up with an incoming call. The name on the display made my blood run cold. Mom. My mother had passed away 3 years ago. The photo on the screen was the one I'd used for her contact back then, her smiling in the kitchen, sunlight through the curtains. I stared at the phone, shaking. The call kept ringing, the sound muted but still there, vibrating through the silence. I couldn't bring myself to answer. My hand hovered over the phone, trembling. What if it really was her? What if it was my chance to hear her voice again? The memory of the message stopped me. Don't answer the call. The ringing finally stopped. My breath hitched in my throat. But then, a voicemail notification appeared. My thumb hovered over it. I shouldn't. I knew I shouldn't. I pressed play anyway. Static hissed through the speaker, broken by faint breathing. Then, my mother's voice, soft, warm, familiar. Honey, why won't you talk to me? Don't you miss me? Tears welled in my eyes. I wanted to throw the phone away, but I couldn't stop listening. I'm right outside, her voice whispered. Please let me in. The voicemail ended with a long, piercing tone that faded into silence. My phone buzzed immediately with another message. That wasn't her. Never believed the voice. I dropped the phone onto the couch, my whole body trembling. Whatever was happening, it wasn't random. Something was trying to lure me out, to trick me. And something else, future log or whatever it was trying to keep me alive. But why me? Why my apartment? I didn't have answers. All I had was fear, and the gut-deep certainty that this was only the beginning. I didn't sleep that night either. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my mother's face on the caller ID, smiling, alive, waiting for me to answer. Her voice still echoed in my head, so familiar, so perfect, but not hers. By dawn, I felt hollow, like my body was running on fumes. The air in my apartment was heavy, thick with unease. I checked my phone a dozen times, waiting for the next message, but none came. The silence stretched on, and for a moment, I wondered if it was finally over. It wasn't. Around noon, the chime pierced the air again. My stomach twisted before I even looked at the screen. Today, 11:34 p.m. Don't fall asleep. I stared at the message, while rising in my throat. Sleep had already become fragile, broken. Now it was forbidden. I spent the rest of the day pacing, drinking coffee, splashing water on my face, anything to keep myself alert. I tried to distract myself with television, books, anything, but my focus shattered within minutes. Every shadow seemed darker, every sound sharper. By evening, exhaustion pressed down on me like a weight. My eyelids burned, my thoughts scattered, but I couldn't give in. I wouldn't. At 11:34 p.m., I sat upright on the couch, gripping my phone like a lifeline. My eyes ached, my heart pounded. The apartment grew colder. Not the kind of chill that comes from a draft, but a deep, bone-level cold, like the temperature had dropped 20 degrees in seconds. My vision blurred at the edges. I blinked hard, forcing myself awake. But then I heard it. A whisper. Soft, low, right next to my ear. Rest. I jerked upright, but no one was there. Just the empty room. Another whisper, this time from behind me. Close your eyes. I spun around, but again, nothing. The whispers multiplied, circling the room, weaving together in a murmur that pressed against my skull. Dozens of voices, all urging the same thing. Sleep. Rest. Close your eyes. My head grew heavy. My body begged to give in. I bit the inside of my cheek hard enough to taste blood, forcing myself awake. I shouted just to drown out the voices, but they didn't stop. Then, from the corner of the room, the shadows seemed to shift. Darker patches pulled together, twisting, forming something almost human. A figure stood there, tall and thin, its outline flickering like static. The whispers grew louder, pouring from its shape. Sleep, sleep, sleep. My phone buzzed in my hand. Through the noise, the message glowed bright. Stand up. Move. Don't let it touch you. Adrenaline surged through me. I stumbled to my feet, my legs trembling. The figure shifted closer, stretching toward me. Its arm was long, too long, reaching out with fingers like strands of smoke. I backed away, nearly tripping over the coffee table. My phone buzzed again. Keep moving. Stay in the light. I darted into the kitchen, flipping every switch, flooding the room with harsh white light. The figure lingered at the threshold, writhing in the shadows just beyond the glow. The whispers turned sharp, angry, 1,000 voices rasping at once. Then, slowly, the figure unraveled into smoke and dissolved into the dark. Silence returned. I collapsed onto the floor, chest heaving, every muscle trembling. My phone buzzed one last time. Good. You're stronger than most. I stared at the message, my heart pounding. Stronger than most. The words were meant to reassure me, but they didn't. They raised a darker question. How many others had there been? The rest of the night dragged by in silence, but I didn't dare close my eyes. By the time the sun rose, my body was screaming for rest. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that if I let myself sleep, I wouldn't wake up. That morning, I stumbled to the bathroom mirror, barely recognizing the pale, hollow-eyed face staring back. I looked like I'd aged years in just a few days. Another message arrived. Don't leave the apartment today. They're watching outside. I staggered to the blinds, careful not to pull them too far. Through the smallest gap, I peered down at the street. 3 figures stood there, motionless on the sidewalk. They wore plain clothes, but their stillness was unnatural, too precise. None of them shifted, none of them blinked. Their faces tilted up toward my window, but their eyes. I couldn't see their eyes. Just blank, pale skin where their eyes should have been. I dropped the blinds immediately, heart hammering. The phone buzzed again. They can't come in unless you let them. Don't acknowledge them. Don't wave. Don't speak. The day dragged by in suffocating silence. I paced the apartment, drank more coffee, stared at the clock. Every sound outside made me flinch. By late afternoon, I cracked the blind again just for a second. The 3 figures were still there. Same positions. Same eyeless faces. They hadn't moved at all. That night, I kept every light in the apartment on. I sat in the center of the room, clutching my phone like a weapon. I was trapped, exhausted, paranoid. And for the first time, I wondered if the warnings weren't saving me at all. Maybe they were keeping me here, isolating me, breaking me down. I didn't know which was worse, the things outside or the thing guiding me from within my phone. By the 4th night, my apartment no longer felt like home. The walls were closing in, the air thick with a weight I couldn't describe. The eyeless figures outside never moved, not even to shift their feet or turn their heads. They stood like mannequins, frozen in their watch. I barely ate. I barely drank. My entire life had narrowed to the space between my couch, my windows, and my phone. Every second was waiting for that sharp, alien chime, dreading the next command. It came at dusk. Midnight. Don't believe what you see. The words sank into me like a stone dropped in deep water. Don't believe what you see. That meant illusions. Tricks. I thought back to my mother's voice, the tapping at the glass, the figure in the shadows. Every night the dangers changed, but they all had the same goal. Get me to open the door, or the window, or myself. The hours crept toward midnight. I sat rigid in the living room, lights blazing, phone in my lap. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. At exactly midnight, the knock came again. Soft at first. 3 taps, then louder. 4, 5. I froze, blood roaring in my ears. Please, a voice whispered. Please open the door. It's me. My heart stopped. It was my best friend, Alex. I hadn't spoken to Alex in weeks, not since he moved across the city. His voice was perfect, exactly as I remembered. Something's wrong, he said, his tone panicked. I don't have anywhere else to go. Please, just open the door. I clenched my fists, shaking my head. It couldn't be real. It was another trick. But then I heard something else. A sound only Alex could have made. His nervous laugh, the way he used to do when he was lying to cover fear. It was uncanny, too perfect. Don't you trust me? He asked softly. I'm your friend. You can't just leave me out here. My chest ached. Tears stung my eyes. I wanted to believe it was him. The knocking grew frantic, fists pounding hard enough to rattle the door frame. Why won't you let me in? The voice shouted. My phone buzzed, screen lighting up with the message. Not him. Don't look through the peephole. I staggered back, trembling. The pounding continued, louder, angrier. Open the door, the voice screamed. Then, suddenly, silence. I couldn't breathe. The quiet was worse than the noise. My legs buckled, and I slid to the floor, clutching the phone. The minutes ticked by in suffocating stillness. Then, faintly, I heard it, whispers seeping through the walls. Dozens of voices, hissing in unison. He's lying. It really is Alex. He's dying out there. You're killing him. You're killing your friend. I pressed my hands over my ears, rocking back and forth, whispering to myself. Not real. Not real. Not real. The whispers grew louder, clawing into my mind, until finally they cut off all at once. My phone buzzed. Good. They almost had you. Never listen when they beg. Relief surged through me, but it was poisoned by dread. If that hadn't been Alex, why did it sound so perfect? How did they know how to mimic him, down to the smallest detail? I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Every time my eyes drooped, I snapped them open again, terrified of what might come if I slipped into unconsciousness. By morning, I was shaking from exhaustion. My hands wouldn't stay still. My reflection in the bathroom mirror looked less like me and more like a stranger, a pale, hollow-eyed husk. I thought about calling someone, anyone, but who could I call? What would I even say? That I was being hunted by eyeless figures, that my dead mother had left me a voicemail, that shadows whispered me to sleep? They'd think I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had. The phone chimed again. Tonight, 2:17 a.m. Don't leave the bedroom. I reread it over and over. Simple enough, I thought. Stay in the bedroom, keep the door closed, wait out. But part of me wondered if this was the test. If the danger wasn't outside, but inside. I tried to prepare. I stocked the room with water, snacks, my phone charger. I pushed the dresser in front of the door, sat on the bed, and stared at the clock. At 2:17, the air shifted. Heavy. Oppressive. My ears popped like the pressure had dropped. Then came a sound. Scraping. Like something being dragged slowly across the floor. It was in the living room. My breath caught. The scraping grew louder, closer, stopping right outside the bedroom door. I clutched my phone, waiting for a message, but none came. Just silence. Then a new sound. Breathing. Deep, ragged, just beyond the door. I held my breath, heart racing. The dresser trembled slightly, as if something was pressing against it. Let me in, a voice growled. Not Alex, not my mother. Deeper, rougher, something primal. The dresser scraped louder, shoved an inch across the floor. The force on the other side was pushing harder now, trying to get in. My phone buzzed. I nearly dropped it. Don't move. Don't speak. Don't breathe. I clamped a hand over my mouth, forcing myself still. The dresser shook again, harder this time. A low growl rumbled through the door. Minutes stretched into eternity. My lungs ached, my muscles screamed. Then, slowly, the pressure eased. The breathing faded. The scraping receded. Silence. When I finally exhaled, it came out as a sob. My body trembled uncontrollably, relief mixing with terror. The phone buzzed once more. They're getting stronger. I stared at the words until they blurred. Stronger. That meant there would be more nights, more tests, each worse than the last. And for the first time, I realized something chilling. These weren't just random warnings. This was a process. Step by step, night by night, I was being broken down, reshaped, prepared for something I couldn't yet see. And I wasn't sure how much longer I could survive it. The fifth day bled into the fifth night like a fever dream. I couldn't remember when I'd last eaten a proper meal or when I'd last felt the sun on my skin. My entire world had shrunk to the size of my apartment, its walls groaning under the weight of whatever watched me from outside. The three eyeless figures remained below on the street, unblinking, unmoving. I stopped checking. It was easier not to look. I thought maybe, just maybe, if I ignored it long enough, the messages would stop. Maybe I'd break free of whatever cycle I'd been caught in. But as the evening shadows stretched long across the floor, the chime came again. My chest clenched before I even looked. Tonight, 3:33 a.m. Don't look in a mirror. The words sank into me like ice. Mirrors. I turned, staring toward the bathroom door. I'd avoided mirrors for days, barely glancing at myself in the dim glass of my phone screen. My reflection had already begun to look strange, wrong. Hollow cheeks, sunken eyes, lips cracked with exhaustion. What would happen if I saw more than just my reflection? I tried to prepare. I draped a towel over the bathroom mirror, turned the closet mirror to face the wall. But the warning nagged at me. Don't look in the mirror. Did that mean only the bathroom? Or any reflective surface at all? The darkened TV screen, the glass of the windows, even the black surface of my phone? As the hours crawled by, I grew more paranoid, covering anything that could cast a reflection. By the time the clock neared 3:33, The apartment looked like a makeshift bunker, towels and sheets draped awkwardly everywhere. The minute struck. At first, nothing. Just silence. My breath came shallow, every muscle wound tight. Then, from the bathroom, came the faint sound of dripping water. Drip, drip, drip. I froze. I hadn't used the sink in hours. Slowly, the bathroom door creaked open, though I hadn't touched it. My chest constricted. The towel I'd hung over the mirror slid to the floor as if pulled by invisible hands. The dripping stopped. From the doorway, I could see the edge of the mirror reflecting just a sliver of the hallway. And in that reflection, something moved. Not me. It was slower, lagging a half-second behind. Its head tilted when mine didn't, its mouth stretched into a grin that wasn't mine. I stumbled back, choking on a scream. The reflection stepped closer, though I hadn't moved. Its grin widened, showing too many teeth. My phone buzzed, the sound deafening in the silence. Don't look. Don't respond. Don't let it notice you. I squeezed my eyes shut, pressing my palms over them until stars burst in the darkness. But I could feel it, its presence, its stare burning through the glass. Footsteps echoed softly, not in the room, but in the mirror. They circled me, slow and deliberate. Then, in a voice like mine but deeper or wrong, it whispered, "I like being you." Tears streaked down my face. My body trembled violently, every instinct screaming to run. But I stayed frozen, eyes shut, breath shallow. Minutes stretched like hours. Finally, the air shifted. The presence receded. When I dared to open my eyes, the bathroom door was closed again. The towel lay crumpled on the floor. My phone buzzed. "You resisted, but it saw you. Be careful." I slumped against the wall, sobbing quietly. It saw me. That minute knew me now, knew what I looked like, sounded like. The thought was unbearable. The rest of the night, I sat curled in the corner of my room, avoiding every surface that could show me even a glimpse of myself. I didn't trust any reflection anymore, not even my own. By morning, I felt detached from reality, like I was floating just above my own body. Days blurred together, each one bleeding into the next. I'd forgotten what normal life felt like. Work, friends, even stepping outside. The messages were my only anchor, but they were also the chain binding me here. That afternoon, another one arrived. Don't answer knocks anymore. Ever. No time. No date. Just a rule. Permanent. Absolute. I stared at the words, cold dread pooling in my stomach. That meant the knocks wouldn't stop. They'd keep coming, night after night, disguised as anyone I knew, anyone I loved. And I'd have to ignore them all. That evening, the first knock came early. Only 9 p.m. Slow, deliberate. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. "Please," a voice called. This time it was my own voice. "Please let me in." I pressed my hands over my ears, rocking on the couch. The knocks grew louder, more frantic, my own voice screaming now, pounding until the walls shook. Then silence. A moment later, my phone buzzed. "Good. Never open it. Not even for yourself." The meaning clawed into me. Not even for myself. One day, I realized the thing outside might sound exactly like me, might knock and beg and plead until I couldn't tell the difference anymore. And if I opened that door, it would be over. I didn't sleep at all that night. I just sat in the glow of the lamps, staring at the door, listening for the next knock that I knew would come. When the sun finally rose, I wasn't relieved. I was more afraid than ever, because now I knew this wasn't a haunting. It was a siege. The sixth night began with silence. No buzz, no warning, no message. For hours, I waited. My phone lay heavy in my palm, screen dark, no alien chime to slice through the air. At first, I thought maybe it was broken, or maybe, just maybe, the ordeal had ended. But that thought didn't comfort me. It terrified me. The warnings had been my lifeline. They told me when to brace myself, when to hide, when to stay strong. Without them, I was blind, unguarded. By midnight, the silence had become unbearable. I paced the apartment, lights blazing, blinds drawn tight. Every creak of the building made me jump. Every gust of wind outside felt like a breath against my neck. I picked up the phone, opened my messages, scrolled back through the string of warnings. Each one was still there, glowing like scars etched across the past week. But the sender, Future log was gone. The messages had no source anymore, just words floating in the void. Then, at 12:47 a.m., the chime finally came. Relief washed over me, sharp and dizzying. I grabbed the phone, desperate for instruction. The message read, "This is the last one. 4 Uhr 4 nachts. Open the door." My breath caught. Open the door. The very thing I had resisted for days. The thing every warning had told me not to do. Now, I was being told to do it. I dropped the phone onto the couch like it was poison. My hands shook violently. No, I couldn't. That was the trap. It had to be. But the words blazed on the screen. The last one. For hours, I wrestled with myself. Back and forth. If I opened the door, I'd be walking into their arms. But if I didn't, what if the warnings had been building to this moment? What if opening the door was the only way to end it? The clock ticked closer. 3:30, 3:45, 4 o'clock. The air grew heavy again, dense and pressing. Shadows thickened in the corners. The lights flickered. At 4:04 a.m. exactly, the knock came. 3 slow, deliberate raps. I stood frozen, heart hammering. Another knock. Louder this time. My phone buzzed again. Now, trust me. I staggered toward the door, my legs trembling beneath me. My hand hovered over the lock. Sweat dripped down my temples. What if it's a trick? I whispered aloud. My own voice cracked. The knocking stopped. Silence pressed in. Then, faintly through the door, came a voice. My own. It's okay, it said. You can open it now. You're ready. Tears blurred my vision. The voice wasn't pleading or angry. It was calm, certain. My phone buzzed one last time. Open the door. Become what you're meant to be. My hand shook on the knob. Every instinct screamed at me not to. But something deeper, something that felt like inevitability, pushed me forward. With a trembling breath, I turned the lock. The door swung open. At first, there was nothing. Just the empty hallway, dimly lit by the flickering bulb. Then I saw them. All of them. The eyeless figures. The shadow thing from the corner. The twisted reflection from the mirror. They stood in the hallway, silent, waiting. And at the front of them, all me. Another version of myself, standing tall, smiling with a mouth too wide, eyes too dark. Finally, it said, "You listened." The other stepped aside as my double reached out a hand. My phone buzzed in my palm, one final message glowing on the screen. Welcome to tomorrow. The light from the hallway flickered once more, then died, plunging everything into darkness. And in that darkness, I understood. The messages hadn't been protecting me. They'd been preparing me. Every warning, every test, every sleepless night, it was shaping me, wearing me down until I had no choice left but to obey. And when I did, when I opened the door, I wasn't escaping. I was joining them. The story ends here. The message cycle closes, but the lingering dread remains, leaving viewers to wonder whether the narrator survived, transformed, or became one of the eyeless figures waiting for the next victim.